It was a cold, foggy night in the small town of Hollowbrook, and I, Officer Daniel Mitchell, was on the graveyard shift at the Hollowbrook police station. Nestled between dense forest and far from the bustling city, Hollowbrook had always been a peaceful place. But on this eerie night, something inexplicable was about to unfold. The station was quiet, save for the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional creak of the ancient building settling. I sat at my desk, sipping lukewarm coffee and scrolling through reports, when a shrill ringing shattered the silence. Startled, I glanced up at the caller ID. It was the alarm system at the abandoned Hollowbrook Asylum. The asylum had been closed for decades, a place of dark rumors and sinister stories. No one in town dared to venture near it after sunset. My heart raced as I answered the call. It was the security company reporting a breach at the asylum. I sighed, thinking it was probably just another false alarm. Nonetheless, I grabbed my flashlight, radioed for backup, and headed out into the inky black night. The asylum loomed ahead, its decaying facade casting eerie shadows in the moonlight. I cautiously entered the building. The rancid smell of decay filled the air. Every step echoed through the empty hallways. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As I ventured deeper into the asylum, my flashlight flickered, casting sinister shapes on the peeling wallpaper. Suddenly, a distant whisper echoed through the corridor, chilling me to the bone. "Get out," it hissed, barely audible. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. My radio crackled with the voice of my partner, Officer Sarah Dawson, asking if everything was okay. I hesitated but ultimately decided to continue, convinced it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. The asylum was a maze of abandoned rooms, each one more ominous than the last. In one room, I stumbled upon a collection of old patient records dating back to the asylum's early days. They were filled with disturbing accounts of treatments that would be considered inhumane today. As I read through the records, the air grew colder and the atmosphere more oppressive. That's when I heard it again, the sinister whisper, now closer and more malevolent. "Leave, or you'll never leave." I spun around, shining my flashlight in all directions, but there was no one there. Panic set in as I continued down the dimly lit hallway. It felt like the walls were closing in on me, the air thick with malevolence. Finally, I reached a door that led to the asylum's basement. It was a place I heard horrifying stories about. People said that the most brutal treatments occurred there, hidden from the public eye. I reluctantly descended the creaking stairs, and my flashlight barely cutting through the darkness. The basement was a nightmarish labyrinth of tunnels and cells, and it was here that I saw something that would haunt me forever. A shadowy figure, dressed in tattered rags, stood in the distance. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light. I raised my flashlight, trembling, and called out, "Hollowbrook Police, identify yourself!" But the figure remained silent, its eyes boring into mine. I took a cautious step forward, and it vanished into thin air. Fear coursed through me as I backed away, tripping over my own feet in my haste to leave the basement. I sprinted up the stairs, my heart pounding, and burst out into the cold night air. Outside, Officer Dawson and the backup had arrived. I tried to explain what I had seen, but they dismissed it as a trick of my imagination, a byproduct of the eerie atmosphere in the asylum. I knew they didn't believe me, and honestly, I couldn't blame them. It all sounded too absurd, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something evil had taken an interest in me that night. Over the following weeks, strange occurrences plagued me. My radio emitted static Latin whispers in the dead of night, warning me to leave Hollowbrook. My dreams were filled with disturbing visions of the asylum's dark history. I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched, even within the police station itself. My fellow officers grew concerned as they witnessed my deteriorating state, but they couldn't understand the true nature of the terror that had consumed me. One fateful night, as I patrolled the empty streets of Hollowbrook, I received a call from Officer Dawson. She had decided to investigate the asylum on her own. Convinced that my experiences were a result of stress or exhaustion, I pleaded with her to turn back, to leave the asylum alone, but she was determined. As I arrived at the asylum, I saw her flashlight beam flickering in the distance, deep within the building. I rushed inside, my heart pounding with dread. The sinister whispers grew louder, echoing through the hallways like a chorus of the damned. Finally, I found Officer Dawson, her flashlight illuminating in a room filled with the asylum's old equipment. But something was horribly wrong. She stood there, her eyes vacant, muttering incoherently. I tried to snap her out of it, to pull her back to reality, but it was as if she was in a trance. And then I saw it. A shadowy figure, the same one I had encountered in the basement. It loomed over Officer Dawson, its eyes burning with malevolence. I lunged at it, desperate to protect my partner, but my hands passed right through it, as if it were made of smoke. In an instant, the figure vanished, and Officer Dawson collapsed to the floor unconscious. I radioed for help, and she was rushed to the hospital, her condition critical. The doctors could find no physical ailment, but her mind was shattered, her eyes haunted by unspeakable horrors. I was questioned extensively by my superiors, but I could offer no rational explanation for what had happened. The incident was hushed up, swept under the rug, and the asylum was sealed off for good. But I knew the truth, and the truth was that something malicious had taken root in Hollowbrook. To this day, I patrol the town's dark streets, haunted by the memories of that night and the sinister entity that dwells within the asylum's decaying walls. I can still hear the whispers in the dead of night. And so I remain, a lone sentinel in a town cursed by its own dark history, forever vigilant, forever haunted by the chilling events of that night at Hollowbrook Asylum. Thank you for listening to Hollowbrook Police, the Asylum's Dark Secret. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like, and if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street, and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. And I hope all of you have a fantastic night.